you there? And hello, everyone. Welcome to Haunting Live podcast. Thank you so much for tuning in this week. As every week, we appreciate you guys watching and tuning in on social media, following us on our Facebook page, and also following our posts that we post there as well. So thank you so much for tuning in this week. And as always, you can catch us later on as well on the podcast apps. If you missed a live show here on Facebook, you can also listen to us later on your favorite podcast apps. So that's always there for you guys as well. This week we have a special guest with us as always. We're very excited to have this person on this week. Her name is Katie Turner. She is a psychic medium, and she's been known from certain TV shows such as Paranormal Survivor, which is one of our shows that we were on as well. So we have a certain connection there that we're going to be talking to her about today, and some of her experiences and what she deals with in the psychic medium world. So with that, let's bring Katie on and say hello to Katie today. Hi, Katie. How are you?
I'm well, thank you. How are you?
Oh, doing wonderful. Happy Mother's Day weekend to you.
Oh, thank you so much. Today's been, it's been a great day. I got to spend it with my children, and I get to finish it off with you guys. So thank you for having me.
Yeah, it's wonderful to have you. So you're a psychic medium. So here on the show, we like to talk to different mediums to find out about what their speciality is, what they deal with day to day. And you and I have sort of a special connection. We were both on the same show as different parts. So I was a guest, and they talked about one of our experiences that we had. You're a different part of the show where you talk about the expert side of things, as in the paranormal field. So we're going to get to that in a little bit here on the show today. But first of all, I just want to start with how did you get into mediumship, and what led you into the paranormal field?
Well, I tell people I've been psychic my whole life. Even back to before I could recollect, my parents would say I could see things and feel things and hear things. And growing up in a household that had a lot of paranormal activity, was something of a normality for me. I grew up on a haunted farm. A couple hours north of Toronto. And through that time, I started seeing a lot of stuff and feeling a lot of stuff. And I grew up with a really open family. They're really cool people. And so they never kind of shut that off from me. They engaged, and they asked me questions, and, they could relate to what I was seeing. So fast forward into my young teenagehood, and I don't want to date myself, but before the internet was a thing, I was going into libraries and watching documentaries and doing anything I could to kind of figure out what I was seeing. I was not necessarily scared. I was intrigued. And so that's how it kind of all began for me.
So what kind of stuff were you seeing when you were younger, growing up on this haunted farm? Can you describe a little bit more about it? Like, what sort of experiences did you have there as a child?
So my very first experience was actually I would get up at early in the morning, and I could hear people talking, and it was clear as a bell, but I couldn't make out what they were saying. And I used to think, why are my parents in the basement, or why are my parents in this room? And I'd go to walk in the room, and there was nobody there. Little did I know that was actually clairaudience happening, and I wasn't aware of it. So, it kind of started to progress and get stronger and stronger to the point where I could see full body apparitions. I would have visitations. I would see not only spirit people, but animals as well. I could see time loops, and I would, see residual energy that would kind of go back in time. It would be flashes, then it would be gone. So it was something that I grew up with all the time. There was never a dull moment in that house.
So what was one major instance that made you think, oh wow, this is something that I could get into as my career as a medium? Like, was there some instant that really stood out to you that sort of pushed you into the field?
Absolutely. So when I was about 14, 15 years old, we would, farmers have to fix fence lines. And so we didn't want the animals to get out. So I was walking the fence line, and I was checking fences to make sure that there was nothing broken. I get to this one particular part in the fence that was way back in the bush, and I've bent over, and I'm connecting the wires, and I look up, and I can see two children playing This was the middle of, the summer, so there was no leaves. It wasn't as if it was a fall setting, but when I looked up, I could see them in period clothing and they were throwing leaves up in the air. And as soon as I saw them and kind of like I stood up and looked, they saw me and I scared them as much as they scared me. And so they ended up kind of turning around and running into nothing. They disappeared. And it was at that moment that I thought, you know what, I really have to get into the library and try and understand this because I'm not crazy. I know what I see. And, I want to learn more. Fast forward into my college years, and I was living in London, Ontario at the time, and we went to a few haunted locations there, and amateurly with some cameras and some small audio recorders, and we started recording stuff there. So it was at that point that I really wanted to make it a serious part of my life.
That's wonderful that such an experience like that actually drew you into it. So you had sort of a,
Hmm.
I want to say, nice experience leading you into the paranormal, not something negative at least. What
Absolutely.
what sort of experiences did you have after the fact that you realized you had sensitive abilities and were able to tune into spirits like that? Was there more that led you into it, or what sort of happened
You know what?
after that?
Yeah, I'll be honest with you, Trevor. I don't know what it's like not to have psychic senses. I shouldn't say that. There was one occasion in my adulthood that I had gone to a location to do a cleansing. And when I got there, I felt as though I was cloaked. And for the first time in my life, I felt vulnerable because I couldn't feel anything. I couldn't pick up anything. I couldn't feel anything. And so that emptiness, for the moment, I felt like I must have been a regular person, to be honest with you, somebody who didn't have those abilities. And that's the only time I've ever not felt something. As a kid, again, it was just normal reading somebody's thoughts, or somebody would pass away and they'd come to me in their sleep, or having predictions. It was just normal for me.
Yeah, that's great that you accepted it as normal too. So a lot of people would shy away from it, not understanding what it was, but you seem to have accepted it as being normal in your life. Did your family accept it as normal as well? Like, was it always an open family for you that they accepted that you had gifts like that?
Absolutely. My mother is sensitive. My father is sensitive. So again, it was something really normal. And, if I came in with an experience, they weren't shooing me away or telling me it was my imagination. They were like, oh, really? They were engaging me and they would keep the conversation up. So I think that's one of the reasons why my abilities stuck so strongly, because I wasn't in doubt. I was confident in what I was seeing. And, I was able to kind of sit with it and metabolize it and understand it. It wasn't until I started in paranormal investigating, on a regular basis, that I actually started, doing readings on a full time basis. That's my full time job now, and so I really believe that paranormal activity and being able to go and read these locations and the people in it was what even gave me the confidence to do what I'm doing today.
Right, and that's where I want to go next here with you is sort of what led you into being a medium then? Like, you had some paranormal experiences in the past that led you into the paranormal field, but how did that jump you into being a medium or a psychic?
So after college, I really wanted to make this something of a professional side of things, right? I really wanted to kind of delve into that quite seriously, and so I developed a paranormal team. And it was at that point that we were going into houses. We were doing a lot of residential cases. There's not so many commercial. I shouldn't say commercial, but open, recreational haunting places here. It's a lot of residential. People are suffering, where I live, and so we would go into those cases. But it was at that point that, um, people ended up coming into my office at the time. They were coming in every day. I worked in an office, and I ended up having to quit my full job to do readings. They'd come in and say, "Hey, I heard you could read. Would you be interested in giving me a reading?" And at first, I fought it tooth and nail. I was like, "No, that's not my thing." I was kind of nervous to step out because, as any other psychic medium, I'm sure can understand, kind of stepping out into the spotlight, sometimes you step into judgment. And so I really didn't want that. But you know what? I'm glad I did. This is my thing. This is what I do.
That's great that you were able to do that, like switch so easily from your professional career and deciding to go into mediumship full time. How do you do your mediumship? Do you do it using tarot cards or do you do it just by sensibility? I noticed that you mentioned that you have the clairaudient abilities. So, was it those abilities that you use, or how do you do your mediumship from a day to day basis?
You know what? I call them downloads. For me, I'm clairaudient, clairsentient, clairvoyant, clairconscient, and empathic. So, depending on the read, depending on the person, it comes in different waves. I don't necessarily need cards or anything like that. That's not to say I'm any better. I just don't use those things. Other people decide to use certain things, right? And that's just not how I do it. For me, it's a download that comes in. Um, I used to read people in person, and unfortunately, COVID kind of forced my hand. So I do a lot of stuff virtually in terms of videos, and we just basically sit and chat, and I give them what I have.
That's great because a lot of people do things different ways, but we're really doing the same thing,
Mhm.
which is communicating with spirit or it's trying to sense the other
Absolutely.
person's sensibilities. So, um, how do you find that nowadays? Since you mentioned that you use mostly virtual for meetings with people for your readings, how is that going lately? Is it sort of more difficult, do you find nowadays, or is it sort of the same? Can you sense people's issues sort of online the same as you would as in person, or how does that work?
Honestly, I don't find a difference. So I do readings all over the world. I'm very grateful to be able to do that. And so online is not something that is new. I have done it, but obviously if I could prefer to meet you in person, I would. But from the people that I've met in person to the people that I've been able, the same people I've read online, they seem to be just as happy with it. And I feel just as confident. I think sometimes when the client is a little skeptical about it, that's what puts the wall up. But as you know, it's not something physical, right? It's something, that's a non-physical form. And so it doesn't necessarily stop because of location or distance or, to me, a download's a download's a download.
Yeah, right, exactly. That's what I was trying to get at was like it's still metaphysical, so you can sense that person from no matter where you are. So, have you been
Absolutely.
fairly busy with that lately then? Has you been keeping up with the same amount of people coming in as you would have without COVID these days?
You know what? I have to say I'm so grateful. I am run off my feet. I have an assistant that does help me with bookings and stuff, and I'm so grateful that I get lots and lots of messages, and I have a hard time keeping up. But I'm thankful that people are patient and they can, book. But no, there's been absolutely no slowing down right now.
No, that's great. What are some of the things that you're finding people are asking? Are they asking about their future now that things are kind of uncertain, or are they asking about personal issues? What are the main topics that they're asking you these days?
I always have people trying to connect with loved ones. That's never changed. That's, everybody wants to connect with loved ones. However, lately I find that the universal consciousness is really anxious. And I'm finding a lot of people, coming to me, asking me about their mental health, wondering, what they can do. Are they going crazy? And I find that a lot of the paranormal activity in terms on a cerebral level is kicked up. So people are feeling these empathic emotions. They're getting messages themselves from loved ones and they don't know how to metabolize that. And so they're kind of coming to me going, I don't know, am I crazy? Am I doing this? And so I kind of have to slow them down and say, hey, it's okay. You're not crazy. We'll slow this down. We'll make it work. And I show them how to download the information so they're not feeling so overwhelmed.
No, that's one thing I was trying to get at as well with that question that I just proposed to you. That was nowadays we are stuck at home a lot more, and I think people are awakening to a lot more senses that they haven't had to deal with before. So one thing I've been asking my guests lately is like, what would you recommend to people that are experiencing things like that they might never have experienced before? Like maybe they're seeing things or hearing things because they're home a lot more. They're not used to that. So what would you kind of recommend to people?
I recommend grounding, grounding, grounding. Everything that we have in our physical realm is electrical, whether it's the lights you have or the car you drive, it's an electrical current. And when that becomes ungrounded, it doesn't function properly. As humans, we are no different. And I think on a not only a physical level but a spiritual level, if you're becoming ungrounded, the information is kind of all over the place, and we have a hard time understanding this stuff. So it may be coming in faster or it may not be making sense. So it's important to slow yourself down and just kind of ground yourself, recalibrate, and try to receive the information a little bit more. In terms of paranormal activity, I think that again, because of that, vibrational frequencies heightened a bit, I think that people again are experiencing a lot more. And so again, they're nervous because they don't know what to expect. I recommend to people, when I do cleansings, when we do paranormal investigations, when I do spiritual guidance, I don't charge. That's not something I charge for. And I think that people in this stage of the game are very vulnerable, and I don't want people being taken advantage of. If somebody says, well, $500 and I can teach you how to ground yourself, or $500 we can come into your location and I personally don't agree with that. I don't, again, charge for any of that stuff. So I think it's important that they do their research and just make sure that they're not, being duped at the same time.
Yeah, no, definitely good advice, especially these days. I think people are actually looking for a lot more answers these days. They're looking for direction.
Mm-hmm.
Everything is just so uncertain. Like, I mean, it's day to day. Like they keep saying, we never know what's going to happen tomorrow. So, that's great advice. I think you have for people is just to, you know, check yourself and make sure you're doing things right in the first place before you actually take any action. So,
Mm-hmm.
let's talk about your paranormal experiences. I know you mentioned just recently that you were involved in a paranormal team that you started. How did that all get started? Like, how big did it get, and are you guys still active these days?
We're still very much active. So we're called the Canadian Supernatural Research Society. And we have a very family-oriented team. Every one of the members is, like a sister or brother to me. And we all take it very seriously. We're all very devoted. I started the team, my God, 7 or 8 years ago, officially, this team. I had a team, like I said, in college, but this specific team I started about 8 years ago, 7, 8 years ago. And we're still very active due to COVID. Unfortunately, we've kind of put things on hold. I certainly don't want to make any of my team members vulnerable, and we want to keep everything safe. So, on an essential basis, if somebody's having a really bad time, then I will go in and do a cleansing if I have to, or try to go in and figure out what's going on a psychic level. But we are still very much active, just slowed down because of COVID.
Right. Yeah, unfortunately, COVID has hit everybody really hard, I think, and we're not able to do our stuff here either that we normally do, which is how actually this podcast got formed. We thought we'd do something different and try to connect with more people that way, like yourself. So, kind of experiences have you guys had in the past with your team? Was there one investigation that you found really stood out to you guys that you want to talk about?
We have a specific location. Every team has their favorite location, right? And we have a specific location that we frequent quite often. We don't even call it investigations anymore. We call it research because we've been there so many times. It's a place called Buck Hill Road. It's located in Brown Lake, Ontario. It's very infamous. So there's an old urban legend that if you drive up to the top of this hill, it's in the middle of the bush. You drive up this dirt road and you turn around and you flash your lights. There's an old urban legend that there was a father that searches for his daughter, and you can see the lantern and him walking up the hill. We've had many experiences there. We've been able to investigate with the police. We've been able to host radio stations and do television documentaries there. And I have to say, I don't want to speak for everybody, but I can honestly say it's our favorite location. We're never disappointed. There's always something there. I had a window smashed. We've had rocks thrown at us. And not everything is evil, but we've had lots of EVPs. We'd have lots of full body apparitions. We've had, there's so much there that you're never disappointed. So as long as you go with respect, they respect you back. It's when people start disrespecting that stuff happens. But there's been many occasions we've dealt with some cryptid hauntings where there was a lizard-like being that came out and was causing issues. We've dealt with there was a Native American haunting that we dealt with that was quite evil as well, and it actually broke the mechanisms in my car for my actual window, the electric window. And so there's millions I could tell you about, but those are kind of the most prevalent that we've dealt with.
That's interesting too. Is it sort of like the roads in the backwoods where they see these lights and stuff? Is that sort of like what you're talking about, where there's these weird lights?
Yes. So we've never been able to capture, there's nothing to correlate. I have a historian on my team, and we've done extensive background history on that location. There's nothing to substantiate the man with the lantern, but we have captured the lights on multiple occasions. When we did do this investigation for the first few times, and the police were there, we asked them to flip on their cherries to make sure it wasn't, an optical illusion. We would break the team up, and we had radios, and one would go at one end and one would go at the other, just to to try to debunk anything. But again, multiple times we witnessed these lights, and it's not explainable. It's absolutely not explainable. We would have EMF levels spikes to like over 200. We're in the middle of the bush. There's nothing there. So there's stuff like that's unexplainable, and we have to say it's haunted.
Very interesting. I'd love to go check that out sometime. Sounds like a great haunted spot for you. Sort of what
Yeah,
evidence
for
have
sure.
you caught with your team then besides that one? Has there been any other evidence that really stood out to you that you'd like to talk about as well?
Um, Lots and lots. I'm a firm believer that if you have a good team dynamic, you get a lot of research, or you get a lot of evidence, I should say. And we've been pretty lucky. We go in with this, not to say a skeptical mind, but we go in with the purpose of trying to debunk logical explanations, and to make sure that it's, if there's scratching in the walls, perhaps it's a mouse. It's not always paranormal, but we're pretty lucky. We get a lot of action. And again, I don't think there's been an investigation that we haven't researched that haven't gotten something, whether it be an EMF spike or EVP, or somebody being marked, somebody being scratched, something. There was one occasion that, I had a couple team members feeling sick. They had to leave the location. There was one team member that ended up leaving because she kept getting headaches and, just couldn't handle it. So again, there's too many to count to tell you the worst kind of scenario.
Yeah, I've had that too in certain situations when you're out investigating. You just come overwhelmed with these sensations, like you get a headache. One spot that we investigated is actually close to where you are, which is in Coburg, the Coburg jail. We investigated
Yes.
that location a couple of times, and I would get headaches throughout the whole day before we start the investigation. I just knew that that investigation would go like really wild because I was getting headaches before we even get in there. So
Yeah.
it's definitely stuff like that can lead to activity, I think, as well.
Absolutely. It's amazing how we're able to pick up on it. I don't think people really take time to pay attention to their bodies. I think that's the most important thing in an investigation, is paying attention to what you're feeling, seeing, among all the other equipment, pay attention to your body. It's number one.
Oh, definitely. Your body is your number one tool. As you, as a psychic medium, know, you have certain abilities, and
Mhm.
we all have certain abilities, I think, in us. So, definitely your number one tool for sure.
Mhm.
Next thing I'd like to kind of talk to you about is your experience within the TV field. So, that's where I kind of got your name from for the show today. So, again, thank you so much for being on here today. I appreciate it.
No problem. No
You were
problem. Thanks.
on the TV show Paranormal Survivor, and we were
Yes.
also on the show as a guest, but you were actually on the show as one of their quote unquote experts on the show. So,
Yes.
like how they like to label people, I guess. But um, tell us a little about how you became involved being on that side of things. Like, what led you to become one of their experts on Paranormal Survivor?
Sure. So I actually started as a guest like yourself. They had contacted me asking me about a couple stories. And the first story that I dealt with was actually of a Canadian soldier. We had done an investigation at his location, and he thought he was going crazy. He was very skeptical, but he was at his last straw. And so we had gone in, and I had given him a couple things, and he was quite hesitant to want to believe, understandably. And it ended up being, during the investigation, and once we concluded it, that it was actually his best friend who was killed beside him in battle. And this gentleman was just trying to let him know he was okay, and he was going at great lengths to try and show him that. And obviously, it was scary for the gentleman once he knew that he was okay. So it was after that they actually approached me the following season and said, "Hey, would you be interested in becoming? You're pretty well versed. We were wondering if you'd like to be a part of the show." And so I obliged and said, "Absolutely." And so it kind of went from there.
Great. So, how many shows did you actually end up doing? Was it just the one season, or were you there for quite a while?
No, I've been with them right to straight to season 5. We did show a couple more episodes. So season uh, 3, we did season 2 or season 3. We did another one with Native American heritage and the Aboriginal side. There was a major haunting, and then fast forward again, we did another episode with them in terms of being a guest with a lizard-like being that was haunting a family. And again, that was a pretty scary scenario. And so, yeah, I've been with them the whole time.
And how was your experience from the start to where you are now? Was it a positive experience working with that team, or?
You know what? I can honestly say every episode that I was ever a part of was something that was legit. You know, as viewers, people say to me like, "Is that real? Like, did it really happen, or is that make believe?" And I am not somebody who wants to sell out. That's not for me. I would rather not. You know, I will argue if I think it's real, it's real. If I don't, I'll tell you it is. And you know, I was very adamant that I wanted to tell the straight, real story, the raw version of things. And so, for me, my experience, along with the other experts, and I'm not going to speak for them, but we all made sure that it was very legit and how we were kind of explaining what was happening and you know, trying to go through each scenario. So I had a really good positive experience. There's nothing that I could complain about.
Great. And so was ours when we were on the show too. Like we were the first people actually interviewed for the whole series altogether because we were in season one. So we were kind of like the test guinea pigs for the whole series, but we were only on the one episode. So it was still a great experience and exposure for our team. So
Absolutely. Hmm.
wonderful experience. And great to be able to connect with you because you're on the other side of things. So it's great to see how you guys work on the other side compared to a guest being on. You just mentioned that you kind of worked with the other experts. Is that something that's common within that field? Do you guys always collaborate together on an episode or on a series and see how you guys work together, or how does that work?
So yeah, so my friend Linda Curio, she's with Georgia Paranormal Society, and Michelle DeRoche is with Canada's Most Haunted. You know, we all came together, and when it was filming time, we all sat together and made sure that you know, we were all on the same page anyway. So it was great. They're two great gals. You know, they're very experienced and well versed and very respected. And so it was exciting for me to get together and be able to chum with them. And we still communicate to this day. You know, we're still chums. So
No, that's great. That's one thing I kind of always wondered. Like, I still watch that series. I watch the other shows that are on the news stations as well, like Travel and Escape and stuff. I'm assuming everybody sees
mhm.
those shows on TV nowadays. So I'm always wondering that myself as a viewer, sort of what goes on behind the scenes, if you guys collaborate or if it's just for that one series or if you even talk at all. So,
No, we definitely developed a friendship, which is kind of, you know, it's pretty cool that way. You when you're together like that, and you're all on the same page, and you're all career driven, you're all passionate about it. You know, it's that common goal together. So yeah,
no, that's wonderful. It makes the show better too. It makes your time after the show better too because you can continue working as well, I think. So, because you're in
absolutely.
the
Yeah,
same field. So, makes sense.
yeah.
So how are things going nowadays for you? Like, are you still working on the show, or are there future plans after COVID? Do you know, or
You know what? We haven't heard anything about any more Paranormal Survivor. In the meantime, I did another show called My Paranormal Nightmare, which I believe is actually airing in the States right now. And so that was another really cool experience. It was kind of set like this, asking me about, you know, my childhood and how I got into the paranormal, and we kind of moved in that direction. So that was another great experience. But at the present moment, a very dear friend of mine and myself, I co-host a show called Let's Talk About It, and we do it every Sunday night. And so that's, you know, that's my thing right now. Him and I love to get into the paranormal and, you know, interact with the guests and kind of go from there.
yeah, sure. Talk about that a little bit more in detail. Like, how did it develop? How did it get started, and where do you kind of see it going in the future?
Well, I actually started as a viewer. So I met Richard. Richard had the show, and you know, him and I clicked right away, and we started talking. And you know, he went through. He had to go and take a break for a little while, and then he decided to come back. And so he asked me if I wanted to jump aboard. And obviously, you know, I was a big fan. I said, yeah, in a heartbeat. So you know, he welcomed me on, and you know, it's been history ever since. We have I have to say, I'm a little bit biased, but I have to say we have one of the most loyalist bunch of viewers that tune in every Sunday. They're so loyal. They're amazing. We try to advertise like yourselves that it's a very safe environment. There's never any stupid questions. We want to engage with you guys and kind of do a question and answer period, as well as talk about safe practices and paranormal activity and psychic senses. And so, you know, that's what brings me back every week, is that I get to talk to these guys, and you know, answer questions and just feel like it's a big family.
No, it sounds wonderful. That's what we do here as well. We try to meet
Yeah,
new people. We try to connect with new people,
absolutely.
network, and make new connections, and share that to everybody too, which is what we do here live on our Facebook channel. So,
Yeah.
sounds wonderful. Sounds like exactly what we do here, Haunted Live Podcast. So,
Yeah,
Any
that's good.
plans for the future? Like, what are you guys planning on doing in the future in all aspects in the paranormal? Like, for TV, for your group? What are you hoping to do after you're released back into the world after COVID?
So I have some very dear friends down in Pennsylvania that have the 1912 Hoover House, and I really want to get down there. We're hopefully getting down to Tennessee and Georgia and Kentucky. There's a bunch of places down there, Octagon Hall. Like there's a bunch of places that we want to get down to, and I'm hoping that I can get back up to the Michigan Paracon this year. Last year, obviously, it was a bust; we couldn't go. So as much paranormal investigations as possible, and we have a bunch of residentials that we kind of held off. That they're not in dire needs. They're more of a safe haunting, if you will. It's not something that's making people scared. So as soon as we can get back out into that, that's what we're planning on doing.
Yeah, I think this year just threw everybody for a loop, and you can't really do what you want to do. Well, thankfully, your cases that you have in residentials aren't serious and they don't need your help right away. If they did need your help right away, would you have been able to help them virtually at all, do you think? Or would you have been able to sort of remote psychic into their location and deal with it that way? Or
So I have done some remote viewing. Funny you should say that. I have done that. But you know what? If it's local enough, and I feel there's children involved, or there's something serious that's going on, I will make that sacrifice. I feel it may not be considered an essential service by some, but to me it is, especially when kids are involved. So I won't put my team at risk, but I'll go in, obviously masked and all that stuff, and we make sure that we're trying to be as safe as possible. And we'll go in and I'll do a cleansing, or I'll at least try to explain how it works. When I do smudging and cleansings, I feel it's really important to teach the individual how to do it, because that's where the conviction comes from, right? It's the belief and the conviction in doing it. So I try and show them how to do it so that they're able to keep themselves safe in the future.
no, that's a good idea. I totally believe in that too. It's totally your intention and your belief as to how much energy is either put out or taken in as well. So it's like if you put out that intent, it's going to come back on you, right? So if
Yeah.
you put that intent out as good or as a blockage for negative energy, then you have to show that person or the homeowner how to do it. So that's really good.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much, Katie, for being here today on Haunting Live. I really appreciate you taking your time out on this wonderful Mother's Day weekend for you to be here on our show today. It was wonderful to meet you and learn about some of your practices and experiences that you've had in the field. So,
Well, thank you so much for having me. Honestly, it was a
mm,
pleasure to meet you guys. Thank you so much. It was an honor to be on your show.
mm.
And, now that we've been able to network, hopefully we can do some more.
Well, it'd be wonderful to maybe be on your show as a guest sometime or something like that. We'd be honored to do that as well.
Absolutely.
And
Yeah.
meet all of you guys on your show there too on your podcast. So once again, do you want to sort of mention your website address so people can find you or how to connect with you, and also information about your show as well?
Certainly. So you can catch me at Katie Turner Sensitive, all right, Katie Turner Sensitive Psychic Medium on Facebook. You can catch me at katieturnerpsychic.com for my website. You can look us up at Canadian Supernatural Research Society.com, same on Facebook. And you know what? If you want to tune in with us every Sunday night at 8 p.m. Eastern, right here on Facebook Live, I have a show with my friend Richard Ruland called Let's Talk About It. And just like yourself, we talk about all things paranormal. There's never a stupid question. And if you want to ask something, we ask you to do that.
That sounds wonderful. Hopefully, we'll be able to tune in hopefully next week or maybe even tonight if you guys are on this weekend.
Yep,
And
we'll be on right tonight at 8 p.m.
right
Yep.
tonight, awesome. Maybe we'll check that out
Right.
as well and tune in. So thank you
That
so
would be
much,
great.
Katie. It's been wonderful meeting you, and hopefully we can have you back on Haunting Live podcast sometime, or even any of your other members as well. So
Absolutely. Thank you so much for having me.
thank you. Yeah, have a great weekend.
You too.
Bye bye.
Bye.
Hi everybody, Sally Diane here with Haunting Live podcast, and they're going down into the basement of the Queen's.
We've been granted access to the basement. This location did have a great fire. How are you feeling right now, Trev? Don't be afraid.
And that was Katie Turner, and she is a psychic sensitive medium, and she's been on different TV shows such as Paranormal Survivor. And that was one of the connections that we had, why I chose to have her as a guest on our show, because we had a connection with that TV show as well. We were on season 1, episode 6 of Paranormal Survivor. You can check out our episode. We are on the second part of that one particular episode, and it's called When Spirits Talk, and you can check that out. Check some of our past experiences out. It's one of our experiences that we had when we were living in Cambridge, Ontario. So very interesting. But thank you, Katie, so much for being here this week. We appreciate it. And thank you all you guys for tuning in each and every week here on Haunting Live Podcast. We're still continuing to grow, so feel free to share our podcast with anybody that you think might be interested. It helps us out a lot if you share it. We're on Facebook, we're on Twitter, we're on Instagram, and YouTube as well. Check out our YouTube channel. We don't just have this podcast on there, but we have other things that we filmed on our YouTube as well, different investigations and past work as well. So definitely go check out our YouTube if you get a chance under Haunting Live Podcast. And also a few things before we let you go here this week, guys. We have reached episode number 19 already, so we have a bunch of people scheduled all the way till the end of August right now. So look forward to many more guests coming on the show throughout the rest of this year. So please tune in each and every week right here, Sundays around 4 o'clock on our Facebook page. Look forward to having you as our guest here and tuning in. Also, don't forget to check out our website. Our official website is hauntinglivepodcast.com. On there, we have event tickets for our next upcoming public event, which is going to be Ghost of the Queens 2021. That is a 2-day public event where you can get tickets for $140 for the 2-day event. And there is a Friday night dinner. We have a special guest coming in to talk as well that night, Mary Ann Kennedy from Ghosts of Dufferin County and Beyond TV show. She will be there to talk about mediumship. And then also we get a dinner that night as well. That's included. And then on Saturday, there's a bunch of workshops, and then there's a ghost hunt and seance to end the night and end the weekend. So it's a 2-day event. The whole 2-day event is $140, and to get tickets, just go to our events tab on our website, and you get them right there. Or you can contact the location directly as well, which is the Queen's Inn Hotel in Stratford, Ontario, and ask for Sally Diane. She is the Queen of Ooga Booga. She has her own YouTube channel as well. And you can catch her on her YouTube on Psychic Sundays on her channel at 9 o'clock on Sundays. So recommend you guys go check her work out as well. So otherwise, we have also our merch page for you guys to go check out. Go check out our items that we have for sale on our website. Different items, different categories, from things like pendulums to crystals to cleansing materials. Things you would use in the everyday paranormal field is what we sell on our site. So go check that out. And right now we actually have a 50% off site-wide sale. So go check out your great deals on our merch. And also don't forget, Chris here at Haunting Live Podcast does his own angel readings. He does them twice a week on Wednesdays at 8:30 and on Saturdays at 3 o'clock. So you can check him out as well if you want a free reading. Anyways, guys, that's about it for this week. Have a great Mother's Day weekend. Thank you so much for tuning in. It's wonderful to have all you guys here tuning in each and every week to check out our special guests. So with that, we'll see you guys next week. Stay safe and happy Mother's Day weekend again to all the moms out there. Bye-bye.
Did you hear that?